Hi there. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this house kick. So I've soloed it and put a loop around it. Let's take a listen first. So it's a nice house kick. It's not too intense, but it's also got a nice amount of sub bass so that it can come through any other bass you've got in your track, which is something really important with kicks. Now I'm going to open up this synthesizer and go through exactly what I've done. So first of all, I'm not starting at a too high frequency because I want the main kick part to be kind of mellow. I want the transient to be soft, in other words. So I don't have too sharp of a high frequency start. However, I have layered a noise sample to add a little bit of brightness and a little bit of sharpness to the transient of the kick. And as you can see, we're rolling down to around 300 Hertz very, very quickly. And then this is where the punch is generated in our kick. It's taken around 100 milliseconds to go from 300 Hertz down to the sub fundamental. And that's what sustains those frequencies and generates the punch that we need for the kick to feel thick. Then, of course, we've got the sub fundamental, which I've chosen F#1. This really just depends on the key of your track. Now, if I go into the amp module, we can see how the amp envelope is affecting the kick. So again, we've got a fairly soft attack, so it's not too sharp. It is starting straight away, but we're actually fading into the attack over the course of around 5 milliseconds. Then fairly sort of sustained over here and rolling off smoothly to about 350 milliseconds. So the whole kick is not too long, around 350 milliseconds. If we wanted it to be shorter, say we've got a really heavy sub bass in our track and we want to roll off the length of the kick, we can simply just do this and make it shorter. Now the sample that I've layered on top sounds like this. Again, it's got a soft transient, nothing too sharp, but without, and then with. Adds a little bit of presence to the kick. Now, I've also used the Radiator plugin. I absolutely love the Radiator plugin. It doesn't do anything more other than just add a tiny bit of saturation to the sound you're processing with it. Now, of course, the harder you push the input, the more saturation you're going to get. But if you just leave it at default, you're just going to get a little bit of heat, as it calls it. And it just makes everything that you put through it sort of thicker and more saturated. So without, with. You're only going to really hear the difference if you've got really good headphones or really good monitors that you're listening through. Now, I do want to mention, with the Radiator plugin by Soundtoys, if you boost the input and the output, there's two saturation stages. So with most plugins, the output knob usually allows you to compensate for the boost in volume by increasing the input knob. Well, in this case, if you look at the manual of this as well, it lets you know that if you boost either the input or the output or both, you get more saturation. So if you really want to get a lot of driver saturation out of this plugin, boost the input and the output, and then load a gain plugin after the Radiator to turn down the volume so as to compensate for the volume increase. Okay, finally, I've got an API EQ, just boosting those high frequencies a little bit to add a bit more presence. This is probably because I made the kick kind of soft in terms of transient. I had the attack kind of slow over here. I didn't start the pitch drift at a really high frequency, and also even the transient I layered was quite soft. So this is just to boost those high frequencies a little bit, and then I took away the low mid-range, which can sometimes sound a little bit boxy in the kick, but only by 2 decibels. Very small adjustments here. 4 decibels on the high frequencies, 2 decibels around here. And that's our kick. Very, very simple. The main thing you want to remember when you're making a house kick is the transient doesn't need to be too sharp, and sometimes layering a hi-hat or noise to produce your transient is going to sound a bit more natural than having a transient that's being generated from a sine wave pitch sweep. This is because the sine wave pitch sweep, it's going to sound very sharp compared to something like a noise or hi-hat sample, which tends to sound a little bit more organic and also last a little bit longer. All right, Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one where I'm going to analyze the R&B kick that I have made.